And now Joshua Atkinson began his fellowship journey in 1977. He worked as staff, was the Inner Light Consciousness Guide, and led the Carmel Experience, a week-long program of personal transformation for the fellowship. He is an ordained fellowship minister, and for the past 35 years has worked as a counselor. Joshua and his wife Anna Lee, who live in, I'm sorry, let me get it right. How's it pronounced? Kauai, Hawaii. I think I got that part right. Are avid students of the Course in Miracles. Mr. Joshua Atkinson.
Well, I have to say, just to start off, before we get into the talk, I began this morning feeling gratefully overwhelmed by Sarah's leading the Seven Terrace meditation. The whole experience this week has had moments of lifting and beauty and love that was not on my radar, but there it was. And so this morning when Sarah was leading the meditation, I found within myself something welling up, and it was presenting itself as a very strong emotion that was begging for tears, and I did let a couple go, but it was a sad kind of thing. It was a recognition that there was a release taking place, release, 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 and in that process of releasing, I could feel my heart opening, and all of those things that I do to bind it, letting loose a little bit. So I'm so grateful for you, Sharon, for that, and for your plugging in and doing whatever, how you do it. But while I'm in a gratitude mode, I also have to say that there's a gentleman here that usually works behind the scenes, as I understand it, who has carried this experience for all of us on his back, so to speak, for a while, and put a wonderful program together. And Mr. Jack over there. Yeah. And how appreciative I am that you thought to invite me to do this, because this is always a highlight for me, to be able to get in front of a group and see what happens. So I'm following, again, I'm just going to stay with this for a moment, this gratitude thing. Sharon's presentation this morning took me home again. I don't know if Sharon's here. Yeah, there she is. Her recollections and her beautiful way of telling story and getting to the nut of things helped me realize again, this is home. It's my base, and I so love you for that. John's presentation, we all were probably blown away with. That was magnificent. That was masterful. So I'm third in the batting order here. There's been 2 home runs, so we're going to see what happens next.
3.
Can I be a home run? All right. Well, let's hope so. It'll be what it is. That's for sure. The Bijas. I want to say just a few things about it, and then I'm going to digress a little bit, and then I'll come back to them. Paul, as any of you who had personal contact with him remember and know, was very keen on paying attention, what he called full-time thinking. That was one of the phrases that he used. Basically paying attention to what's going on with our life. Not just a bystander, not just letting things come and go, but actually being involved with our life to the point where we could, if we chose, see that changes needed to be made or a different way of looking at things needed to occur. His dedication to that, he demonstrated. He didn't just teach it. He was definitely present. Every time I was with him, it wasn't about this or that. It was about what's going on right in this moment. We all have had different experiences with Paul, but with these Bijas, what he presented to me, and it was at a time when we were meeting I know it related to the 40 days, which I didn't go on, but it was after the 40 days when we started having what were called Chala meetings. And there would be a group of staff and others that would come to Paul's house frequently whenever he called for a meeting. And that's where I learned about the Bijas from Paul. One of the things that I recognized with the Bijas is that they weren't just affirmations. I mean, they are beautiful affirmations, but like many things in the fellowship, there's also a depth to them. It's kind of easy to come up and say, oh, yeah, God is love, but wait a minute, do I really know that? So Paul was so adept at helping us clear the space to recognize the truth of these words. And that's primarily because he was able to do that and demonstrate it for us. He would also give us directions, and the directions that he gave us for the Bijas, you're going to laugh at this. On the handouts, I think at the top it says introduction, and then it talks about the Sanskrit word and so on. What's missing there is how to use the Bijas. Any mathematicians in here will enjoy this. And I'm just going to read it because I have it off of the wisdomofsolomon.com website. The suggested use of the 40 Bijas is to use each mantra for a week or more until you are affected by noticing that the thought returns to the surface of your mind and you accept it without hesitation. Beautiful. Now, repeat the Bija 360 or more times each day a week. That's once every 3 minutes. I don't know about that. So either Paul was asking us to fly to the moon, or somebody maybe didn't transcribe this quite right. Once every 3 minutes. Now this is once a week. Every day for a week, one Bija for 40 weeks. So that's almost a year of every 3 minutes of my waking life thinking of one of these Bijas. It's not going to happen. But what could happen, it says, say it over and over, silently or loud, while driving or meditating. Fill your mind with the thought as much as possible until you are affected by it. Now that we can deal with. And then he goes on to say, and how to use the Bijas, be a responsible thinker. Plant the thoughts you wish to grow and bring forth fruit deliberately. Don't be a victim, be a cause. Use these thoughts to replace weeds in your garden of consciousness. And then after 40 weeks, start over. Okay, so that is either a typo or that typifies Paul's determination to get our minds right, to have a discipline so that we can not be so distracted, easily distracted by the world. He demonstrated that to me. Some of you have heard this little tidbit. He demonstrated that to me when I first started working at the fellowship, having come from Evansville, Indiana, and Santa Claus land, where I was fortunate enough to take an ILC class with Paul, Analia, Tar Singh, and be greatly affected enough to say, I'm done with Santa Claus land. I'm moving to Virginia Beach, because there was something that I saw in these people that I wanted. And I was also greatly affected by the first interaction I had with Paul when he looked squarely at me and he said, you don't feel very loved, do you? And I thought, well, how do you get that? But it's true. So, how you don't feel very loved, do you? So I thought, he's...
What Tara Singh asked you about when you told him that you worked at Santa Claus.
So I'm affected by Paul, and I'm hooked. This guy knows something. He knows something about me that I actually hadn't paid any attention to. And so I figure there's some gain here for me to hook up with these folks. And I loved Analia. She's all pregnant and selling books, but she's doing it with such purity. I'm thinking, damn, I've never met anybody like that. They're not hawking books. She's just being herself, So there was a purity about the whole experience for me. And as the few days went along, it was a 10-day conference back then, or 10-day experience back then. As the days went along, Tara Singh, who some of you know, and some of you have heard of, and some of you have never heard of, but he was a big part of the fellowship for me at that time. He was sitting in the group of us that were taking the classes, and he was dressed in his Indian garb, and he had his top knot on. And this is very strange in Evansville, Indiana. You don't see this. So I'm a little intrigued, and I didn't realize at the time that he was part of the troop. So he somehow or another recognized that I had a hunger. I don't know how he recognized that. Maybe it was the questions I was asking, I don't know. But he took me aside after a few days. He came over and he took me by the hand, which was very strange for me to begin with, from a man. And he took me into this back room, which had no furniture in it. And we sat down on the floor, and I'm thinking this is really strange. But I'm going to go with it. I'm a big boy. I can go with this. And he looked at me and he said, and what do you do for a living? And I said, I work at Santa Claus Land. And which was true. I had lunch with Santa Claus every day. It was an amusement park, right? That wasn't a hallucination, I'm sorry. Actually, it was a hallucination, but that's a whole another level of conversation. So he says, what do you do for a living? I work at Santa Claus Land. And he looked at me, and he got this smile, and he says, oh, does that give your life meaning? So, I'm hook, line, and sinker at this point. And made the trek. Put my notice in immediately, did the whole thing, made it to Virginia Beach. First person I met here was Ruth Ann Pippinger, who some of you all know. She's been to some of these gatherings at times, ILC guide. Still involved with the fellowship to some extent. First person I met was her interrupting a prayer healing session and got scolded. That was my first experience at Virginia Beach, was being scolded. And I thought I was coming to a lovely monastery where I could learn to be holy or something, And second person I met who was standing right behind her was this beautiful being named Mark Sheen, who some of you all, I hope, know. And if you don't, I hope an opportunity comes forth. He lives down in Pungo, or I think it's Pungo. Yeah. And has a farm and so on. But anyway, he kind of rescued the situation and welcomed me and gave me a warm hug and was so genuine. So that was that. So I got off on that story when I wasn't planning on going there. It happens, doesn't it?
Bijas means to the audience.
Yeah, it's a borrowed word. If you look it up in Wikipedia, you'll see that it relates to Hinduism, and it relates to mantras, and mostly singing, sounding mantras as a way to reach a state. So, it's a borrowed word. But what this is for me, this whole Bijas experience, and I'm kind of glad that Jack put it on shuffle, because I am of the experience with these Bijas is that you can actually start anywhere. Paul recommended you start at number 1, and there's a progression. But if we want to know the truth will be revealed in any one of these. Now, here's the catch, though. Can I get myself out of the way enough so that when I read one of these Bijas or any other sacred source or text, can I get myself out of the way enough that I don't start defining what I read as I read it in my own terms? Can I look at this or anything without giving it meaning that I'm bringing to this experience that I'm having. If I'm doing that, then there's a good chance I'm trying to make whatever I'm experiencing, a bija or whatever's going on, fit into my belief system. That's what I'm trying to do. And I think we've all learned, and the Orange Terrace is very clear about it, and so was Sir George Trevelyan when he spoke here, that all we really need to do is be willing to jettison our beliefs about whatever it is we're experiencing to see the truth of what we're experiencing. So if I read one of these bijas, what I create is, well, first of all, I've got this idea of who I am. Is that even accurate? Create. What is create? I mean, I can make something, but is that the same thing as creating? You know, I was looking at, and where's James Yaxis? I was looking at everywhere. Okay, I was looking at, and I don't know if James is here, but yeah, he's here. And I was talking with James the other day about creation. I was asking him where this comes from for him. And he was very clear about it. He just gets out of the way. And then there it is. So that same principle can be applied to these bijas. If we can get ourselves out of the way enough, and Chris, in your music, my God, you know, geez, everybody knows all about that. He's like a transparent being, and all this just comes through so beautifully. But if we can get ourselves out of the way, but that's the hard part, because we all think we know. You know, every argument I've ever had comes from, I think I know. And I can justify it, I can make it right, I can give you evidence, I can get a gang to raise their hands and agree with me, but where does that lead to? So the study of the bijas, for me, starts with, I don't know. If I can approach the bijas that way, then what this really cool thing can happen. And it can happen in this room right now with what we're doing even. There's a flow of consciousness. There's a stream. Call it what you want. It's not of our making, but it's there for us to participate in. And that stream of consciousness, we can call it Christ consciousness, we can call it the flow, we can call it any number of different things, only asks us to do one thing, and that's to participate in it, to let the stream move us. Let's not cling on to the rocks, let's not scramble for the shore, let's not try to swim upstream, let's not try to tell the stream what it is, but let's just simply be with that and see what is revealed. And that means we need space. If I'm filling up what I'm reading or what I'm experiencing with what I think, there's no space for anything to be revealed. So I've got to get to a place where when I read, God needs my cooperation, number 8. Yeah, we could pick any of these. God needs my cooperation. Really? So God knows me, and he wants my cooperation? For real? Okay, show me, God. Show me. You know, I need proof. I'm not going to accept this at face value. I want to really know. And I don't know how to make myself know. I can pretend to know. I used to pretend I was holy. Put on the Jesus face, got that Jesus smile going. Walked into the dry cleaner down on Laskin Road. The dry cleaner looked at me and said, "Where'd you get that Jesus smile from?" It was a good try. That was a whiff. God needs my cooperation. Okay, cooperation. Cooperation. That's a two-way street, isn't it? If we think about it for a minute. He's not asking me to sacrifice. He's asking me to cooperate. Co-operate. So what is it in me that operates? Well, it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be love or fear, one of the two. And the fear story, we've all got them. We've all got our dramas and our traumas and our history. We've all got our story. And if we look very closely at that, we'll see how much of it is based in a fear thought, particularly how much of it is body-related. You know, we all actually probably think we're bodies here. You know, and Paul taught, you know, the body's just an instrument. You know, it's there for you to use. I flipped that upside down, and I recognized that the body is in my mind. When I was laying on the table after heart surgery and giving up the ghost, giving up the ghost, there it was. There was the choice, and it was very obvious and very clear. Come or go. And what I recognized is it didn't matter, because there is no real coming and going. Spirit, what God created cannot die, period, case closed. And then we all know that. I was fortunate enough to create a story called Open Heart Surgery that allowed me to see that in vivid color, because I'm a little hard-headed, and I need to see things in capital letters and vivid color sometimes. And it showed up, and oh God, she's agreeing with me. I am a, oh, I thought you were saying I'm a little hard-headed. Oh.
Other advantages that you had, like seeing the cats and hearing the music and different realities. You know I said that.
I don't know if that fits right here.
But it's a funny story.
It is a funny story. You like funny? Okay, all right, here we go then. Here we go. So in this experience of recognizing that I'm not a body, because the body was just given up to ghost. That's what the body was doing at that point. But there was still a choice to be made, you know, stay or go. And what kept me was my desire to continue life in this story with my wife, who, you know, is for me the gift from God, and also to have time with my grandchildren and daughter and son, and you know, just to enjoy that, and that's all. You know, no real designs other than enjoyment. But part of that awakening thing with this heart surgery, and not getting lost in fear about it, but feeling the love that was present. Just like right now, there's such a love present. That's when Sarah, oh my God, Sarah, when Sarah was doing her thing this morning with the 7 terraces, it was such love in what she was doing. That was just melting me. It's just absolutely melting me. I couldn't believe it. I could believe it, because it happened. So there we are, coming out of surgery, and this is before the other kind of thing happened where it was giving up the ghost. I look in the, you know, you're barely waking up. You're coming out of anesthesia. Some of you guys have had procedures like that. I'm looking around the recovery room, and I see this wagon full of cats. And the cats all had hula skirts on. And they were all dancing. And they were happy. And I saw in the middle of the wagon this very sedate, quiet Asian man, kind of residing very peacefully in the center of that. And I thought, wow, that is cool, because it was really happy. So it's anesthesia. Or maybe it was a glimpse. I don't know. It didn't matter. What mattered was the experience, right? So, and I wasn't smart enough to invent all of this stuff. So anyways, I turned to the nurse. I said, "You see all those cats over there?" And the nurse said, I said, and there's this Asian man laying there. And she said, "Oh, yeah, there is an Asian man over there." Well, he was probably reclined in some hospital bed or something, would be my guess. That sort of continued, because after that, and this, I give some validity to this one, though, because after that I started hearing music. And it was beautiful music, and it was in a variety. This is over the course of the next Well, actually, it continues. I'm glad John said what he said today about he can hear music, because it could be considered something else. So I'm hearing these wonderful sounds. It's like marching bands, and there's choirs, there's angelic choirs, and kind of all this is just going on for a few days, and has continued. And actually, I experienced it way 40 years ago too. And so I'm telling my wife and my daughter, "Do you hear the music?" And they don't hear any music. And it's like, so I'm like, okay, that's anesthesia still misfiring in my brain, but I didn't care. I don't care. I'm going to enjoy it. So the bottom line with all of that, let me just sum that up and we'll get back to the Bijas, is if we're having a hallucination, might as well enjoy it. So let's make it a happy one. The Course in Miracles talks about that this is a dream. All that we're experiencing right now, in actuality, is nothing more than a dream in the mind of someone, of some group of souls who have decided to ask the question, what would it be like to live apart from God? What would it be like to live apart from God? And out of that, being creative children of God, we built this dream. That's a stretch, I know. And it can be a little disconcerting. And it may be nothing. Maybe I'm full of it. I don't think so, but maybe I am. So the idea with studying the Bijas is, if I can refrain from giving meaning to what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, what I'm utilizing, this particular tool, and allow whatever trueness is there to arise, that I can see, that's my experience, then that Bija is mine. Paul's best teaching for me, his greatest teaching for me is, I need no excuse for experiencing and expressing pure joy. And boy, did he live that. He had his moments, right? He had indigestion from too many cheeseburgers or something, I don't know. But he exemplified, I need no excuse. So if we dive into that, just that one Bija, let's pay attention, because our minds are now disciplined. What excuses am I making right now to avoid experiencing pure joy? What is my thinking that's not aligned with what I really want? If pure joy is what I really want. And that's what I want. And I'm just really happy to have been able to share that little piece with you. And I suggest the Bijas are extremely worthwhile to take a look at. I don't know if once every 3 minutes for 40 weeks will be your cup of tea, but you could at least pick one and see what happens. Just see what happens. Okay, thank you. My time's up.